Video editing, a skill that allows you to work from anywhere, at any time you want, and make great money doing it. But starting out, it can be overwhelming. What software do I use? What tutorials should I watch? What projects should I work on? If I could start over knowing what I know now, here's exactly how I would learn video editing and learn it fast. I'll break this video up into 6 key steps that if you follow and put the work in will quickly make you a great video editor. Step 1, your mindset. I get it. When I started, I just wanted to dive into the tools and edit the best videos possible. But rushing into editing without the right mindset is like trying to run before you've learned to walk. The good news is, mindset isn't something that takes extra time. So let's break this down into 3 mindset shifts you should focus on to learn video editing faster and better. Number 1, story first, tools second. When I was 17, I genuinely thought I would be a great video editor because I was super fast at video editing in Premiere Pro. But my entire mindset shifted when I spoke with an expert motion designer who made me realize that I had learned everything backwards. Sure, I could put together an edit super fast, but I was missing one key thing: storytelling. The key is to recognize that your main purpose is to be a storyteller who simply uses their skill in video editing software to tell their story in a way that keeps the audience engaged. Which leads me to number 2, think like your audience. Believe it or not, it's easy to forget that when you're editing a video, you're making it for other people to actually watch. You need to ask certain questions with every editing decision you make, like, should I make this video super energetic or more laid back? What music will this audience relate to? Should I use sophisticated or playful visuals in my animations? But to put it simply, it all comes down to one thing: who am I making this for? Next up is 3, visualize your why. Let me tell you the brutally honest truth. You will never stick with video editing if you don't have a strong underlying reason that you want to keep going. When I was 10, I wanted to make soccer videos that would entertain my friends and show off my skills. At 13, I made funny gaming videos to make me and my friends laugh and try to get famous. And when I was 15, I combined the two and made soccer gaming videos, and then soccer Instagram videos to see if I could grow social media accounts. The common thread through these years, and now, is that there was always a strong why. Whenever I lose sight of this why, there is less conviction and less reason to keep going. So keep that why on the top of your mind all the time. But that's enough about mindset. Now let's dive into step 2, choose a video editing software. The first question every new editor faces: which software should I use? Here's the deal. Tools are just that, tools. What matters is how you use them. I personally use the Adobe Creative Suite, Premiere Pro for video editing, After Effects for motion graphics, and sometimes Photoshop, Illustrator, or Figma for creating assets. But if you're on a budget, DaVinci Resolve is a great free editing software, and it's even used professionally for its color grading features. But once you choose your software, there's an even bigger problem: learning how to use it. You can find tutorials on YouTube, but it's still hard to put together a detailed lesson plan if you're trying to go from absolute zero to proficiency in the software. And that's where a platform like Skillshare comes in, who were actually kind enough to sponsor this video and make it possible for me to make for you guys. Getting started learning any new tool can feel overwhelming, not knowing where to begin and what to focus on. To follow. One feature I've found especially helpful is called learning paths. These are from the basics of the interface to advanced color grading. It's like having a personal roadmap to mastery, and it saves so we'll get a free month. Step 3, learn core concepts. Now it's time for the fun part. After learning your video editing software, we can dive into the fundamentals, which are the backbone for great video editing. But before we dive into those, I want to share a mistake I made early on, one that you should avoid at all costs. When I first started, I tried to learn everything all at once. I jumped between Photoshop tutorials, After Effects animations, Illustrator designs, and it got overwhelming fast. Sure, I learned bits and pieces here and there, but it distracted me from my main goal, which was making better videos. What I didn't realize is that great video editing comes down to a few key fundamentals. If I had focused on these sooner, I would have improved so much faster. So let me save you some time. Here are the fundamentals that I wish I started with. 1, composition and design. Composition is all about how your video looks and how you arrange the elements on the screen to guide the viewer's eyes. One of the most important concepts here is hierarchy, making sure that the most important element in your shot stands out. You can do this by using size, position, or contrast to draw the viewer's attention to where you want it. Another concept is color. Color isn't just about looking pretty, it sets the tone and the mood of your video. So stick to a consistent color palette and use complementary or contrasting colors to highlight key elements in your frame. There's also balance. A balanced frame feels natural and pleasing to the eye, whereas an unbalanced one feels like this. You don't want everything crammed on one side of the shot. And there are so many other design principles to consider, but these are some of the most important that I've found for video editing. Next is storytelling. And honestly, this is the heart of any great video. Without a story, your footage is just a bunch of random clips. Every video, whether it's a feature film, a vlog, or even a tutorial, should have a clear beginning, middle, and end. The goal is to just make your audience feel something. Ask yourself, what emotion do I want to create here? Let that guide your cuts. If a shot doesn't add to the story, then cut it, even if you think it's the best looking shot you've ever filmed. Next is sound, which in my opinion is the hidden hero of video editing. Take my voice for example. Right now it sounds like this. It sounds good, but now it sounds like this. And you might not want to watch this video as much if my voice doesn't sound as clear or as full. You can have stunning visuals, but if your audio is bad, people will click away. The dialogue should sound clear, the sound effects should be subtly emphasizing visual motion, and the music should set the mood. And these three things should also be balanced so that the music isn't overpowering and you can actually hear what you're saying. Then we got pacing, which is what keeps your audience hooked throughout the video. For action-packed moments, you might want to have fast cuts. If a section feels too long or drags, then tighten it up. For emotional or dramatic parts, slow it down. Let the audience feel what is being spoken about. So that's it for the core concepts. The next step is a little more straightforward, but I'm gonna break it down into a mini roadmap that you can follow each time. So, step 4, never stop learning. If you look at anyone who is a top performer at what they do, it's because they are in a constant cycle of practicing, reflecting, and iterating. They put the work in, they reflect on what was good and what could be done better, and then they make the changes that they need to improve. Here's an easier way to think about this. Take someone who wants to get more muscular. They start out going to the gym 3 times per week. Pretty good, right? But after a month, they reflect on their growth and decide to change their routine. And instead, they go 5 times per week. Another month goes by and they notice a lot more growth. Then they read some articles that say taking creatine helps with muscle growth. Now it's been about 6 months and they've noticed significant improvement. But after thinking they have the key to building muscle, 6 months later, they realize they haven't grown in size. Funny enough, this was actually a story about me. Once I felt I was sort of untouchable in terms of growing at the gym, I kind of put my routine on autopilot. And a similar thing will happen to you if you stop learning as a video editor. But what if you feel like you've learned everything you can, or you're not sure where to look for next to keep learning? Well, this leads me to step number 5, work with others. Now, the life of a video editor is inherently isolating, and that can be incredibly discouraging for a lot of people. Additionally, if you aren't sure how to improve your skills, it can feel like a hopeless dead end. This is where working with others comes in, and there are 4 main ways I would recommend going about this. 1, find a job at a content agency. I think working at an agency is essential for beginner and intermediate video editors. You need to spend time working consistently to build up the skills that go beyond just the technical expertise. You also have free access to speak with your team members and learn from their experiences. For me, a huge takeaway from my time at an agency was also getting to understand a bit of the business side, which is more client-facing and logistics-focused. Number 2, find a mentor. Getting one-on-one coaching from someone who has more experience than you do is one of the biggest game changers for your technical skills as an editor. They can teach you so many tricks that they've learned that you can usually only gather over time. In my opinion, it's a hack to learn anything like 10 times faster. And this person might also become a friend or a professional reference for you down the road. Number 3, join a community of like-minded people. You might not believe this, but I didn't used to believe in the power of community. I thought I could do it all by myself, and this is partially true. But when you isolate yourself, you miss out on the perspectives and the learnings that others have, which I have found to be one of the biggest ways I was able to become more successful. For this very reason, I started a community that I linked in the description below that aims to help people with these very things. So feel free to check that out if you're interested. And 4, work with clients more personally. Instead of just being your client's video editor, be more than that. Have scheduled video calls and figure out what other problems you can help them solve so that they get better results. Personally, this is where I have found the most fulfillment as a video editor working with clients. Focusing on other ways you can help not only strengthens your professional relationship, but it helps you learn more skills in the process, and it makes you and your services harder to replace. You can also get referrals from happy clients, and even testimonials for your website or portfolio. There's no bad option here, but if you're interested, my path was personal development for about 5 years, agency and freelance work for about 2 to 3 years, and for the past 1 to 2 years, I've owned my own agency, helping clients grow on YouTube and I have this channel as well. But if you want to hear more about that, you can watch my other video that I will link at the end of this one. So now you've mastered your mindset, you've become proficient in editing software like Premiere Pro, you understand the core principles that make a great video editor, you never stopped learning, and you found ways to work with others. But now you need a way to keep progressing in your video editing career, which leads me to step number 6. Make yourself more valuable. Now, there are just about 100 different ways that you could go about this, but to keep it simple for you, I broke it into 3 simple categories that will make the most impact for your career as a video editor. 1. Personal brand. I'll break this up into 2 different categories. The first is showcasing your work. This looks like posting your work on a portfolio site, creating professional looking profiles on LinkedIn, Twitter, etc. The second is showing yourself and your work. So this is everything I just mentioned, but you're also showing a little bit of yourself. This is a real personal brand. This makes people feel like they know you already, even when they've only seen you talking on a video. This turns cold leads into warm leads that want to work with you, not leads that want you to work for them. After personal brand, we have complementary skills. Some of the most important skills that I think you can have are motion graphics or motion design, overall visual design skills, storytelling, business and negotiation or sales, and then communication and professionalism. And I would argue adding complementary skills to your skill set is the most important factor in succeeding as a video editor in today's global economy. And plenty of people also have complementary skills and somewhat of a personal brand online. But what 90% of people lack is the communication and professionalism. It matters more than you might think. People want someone they can rely on and they know will get the job done. And if you can be that person, then you can command a premium for your services. Another part of this is being clear with deliverables that allow you to run your business and not let your business run you. You might even want to draft contracts that make your relationship a little bit more established. Some other things you should do are being comfortable in the language of your target customer. So if English isn't your first language, but you want to work with English-speaking clients because maybe they have more money to work with, then you should probably try and learn the language. That would be a lot more important than you might think. And I know it's not easy to learn a language. I mean, I only speak English and maybe a little bit of Spanish, but it can make a pretty big difference. And just be genuinely caring, like care about the work that you're doing, because most people are just out there to get a little bit of pay, which is fine, it makes sense, like you need to keep yourself alive, but past that point, you should think about how can I make this better for my client? How can I make them want to work with me? How can I get other clients interested in my work and get pay better overall? And unless you have times where you're very invested in your work, then you might not reach that point. Now, if you're serious about developing as a video editor, why not surround yourself with others who are on the same journey? You can join the video editor community like I mentioned before, and the details for that are in the description below. It's packed with resources, support, and people who are just as passionate about editing as you are. And if you found this video helpful, I think you'll like this video, where I condense my 10 years of video editing knowledge into just 10 minutes.
Learning to edit can feel super overwhelming. There are so many tools, so many tutorials. It's hard to know even where.
Video editing, a skill
This is Frank, Jacob, and Vitaly. These are the kinds of videos that they were making before, and now 30 days later, this is what they are creating. So how the heck did they learn to edit like that? Frank, Jacob, and Vitaly all joined Ultimate Editors and were put on a 30-day step-by-step plan that was guaranteed to teach them the fundamentals of editing, advanced editing concepts, and multiple high-end editing styles, which took them from complete beginners to absolute professional editors. And in today's video, I'm going to be sharing this exact same 30-day step-by-step plan that is going to take you from a beginner to a professional in video editing. And I'm not here to share no basic guide. I'm going to teach you the plan that's going to make you an editor that is eligible to get paid $1,000 to $2,000 for editing. So without further ado, let's dive straight into this. I don't know if you've noticed, but there's a lot that we're going to have to learn in 30 days. So here's how we're going to break this down. We're going to be splitting the 30 days into 4 weeks, and we'll designate each week for a specific thing in editing. Week 1, we'll learn the fundamentals of editing. Week 2, we'll get into the advanced concepts. Week 3, we'll learn a short form editing style. And week 4, we're going to learn a long form editing style. This way, we're going to learn concepts for the first 2 weeks and then apply them for the second 2 weeks. And with this plan in mind, let's get started on week 1, the fundamentals. Learning the basics of editing is like building a foundation to a house. No matter how nice you want the house to look, you must have a strong foundation. So to build a strong foundation in editing, we're going to be spending 7 days mastering the basics of Premiere Pro. Now imagine you wanted to teach your kids how to swim. What's the best way you can do that? Yep. Toss them in deep waters and let them figure it out. That's why on day 1, we're going to be learning the Premiere Pro UI and basic editing tools. So boot up Premiere Pro and start clicking random things. Open up the workspaces, go to editing and start importing things, clicking things, moving things, and trying out everything. By doing this, you're going to get over the fear of a new software and start figuring out where some things are. Then you need to get into the editing tools. The razor tool, select tool, and type tool are the most important ones. And we'll just dedicate day 1 to learning the Premiere Pro UI and the basic editing tools. On day 2, we're going to be learning sequences and sequence settings. Try importing some footage and learn about the sequence that you are editing in. Then learn all these sequence settings and what they do. The main ones you will constantly use are dimensions, frame rate, and codec, and that's it. Now at this point, you're going to be able to import some footage, cut it, and move it around the timeline. And on day 3, we're going to learn the different variables that we can change. So import a video and mess around with these variables over here to discover what they are and how they can be used. Make a few cuts and try placing your footage differently and see how it makes a difference. You should then be able to learn the position, rotation, scale, and opacity of a clip on your own. And on day 4, we're going to be focusing on text. Text is a big part of editing, so you'll first need to learn how to create text. Then mess around with the fonts and text settings and create a few text styles that you like. Make sure to save those as motion graphics templates because we're going to be needing those very soon. And at this point, you're getting familiar with Premiere Pro and the basics of editing. So on day 5, you're going to be learning about additional properties. These are all the things that you can do by right-clicking your footage. The main ones we're going to want to focus on are going to be linking and unlinking, nesting footage, audio levels, and changing speed. You'll want to mess around with these until you have a solid grasp on. And now on to day 6, where we're going to be doing our first ever actionable step. It's important to learn new things, but it's also just as important to keep practicing the things that we learn. That's why you're going to download some trial footage that you can find down in the link below. And with your current knowledge in editing, don't try and go overboard with this. I want you to first cut out all the silences and the bad takes in this clip, and then use the editing knowledge that you have just learned to try and create your first ever video. With this being said, it's probably not going to look good, but that's fine. This is just to practice everything that we just learned. And on the 7th day, God finished all his work that he had done, and he rested on the 7th day from all his work that he had done. See, even God rested. So should you. Which is why day 7 is just a rest. This is to first of all prevent you from burning out and no longer caring about editing, but also to keep you interested in editing and wanting to learn more. So take the day off and have a nice rest. But now that we have used the first 7 days to build a solid foundation in Premiere Pro, it's time to invest the next 7 days in learning the advanced concepts that will help us edit high-end engaging videos. And that's why in week 2, we're going to be learning the advanced concepts of editing. We'll start off day 8 by learning pacing and J-cuts. Pacing is extremely important in editing, which is why it's pretty smart to learn how to pace short-form videos, long-form videos, and other types of edits. And to take your cutting game to the next level, you're going to need to learn J-cuts. So invest some time into learning the J-cut and practice it until it looks smooth and seamless. And once you've improved your cutting game, it's time to move on to day 9. On day 9, we're going to be focusing on keyframes and velocity. This day is worth investing a lot of time in. You'll first want to learn the concept of keyframes so that you can start making animations inside of Premiere Pro. Then you'll start with basic animations like movements, zoom-ins, zoom-outs, and opacity animations. And once you've had a solid grasp on these animations and feel like you can take it to the next level, you'll want to click this arrow here and dive into the velocity of the animations in Premiere Pro. This is going to take your animations to the next level, and just take a look at this difference. So the objective here is to learn how to do 2 things: smooth movement animations and smooth zoom-ins. No more, no less. Now moving on to day 10, you'll probably feel a bit tired from the previous days, which is why on this day we're going to take some time to learn how presets and plugins work inside of Premiere Pro. You should start by downloading Essential Motion 2.0, Motion Bro, and Premiere Composer. And these are all the presets and plugins you'll ever need in Premiere Pro. Take the rest of day 10 to practice using keyframes, velocity, and smooth animations inside of Premiere Pro. And once you're ready for day 11, we're going to dive into sound design. Now this is a huge subject just like animation. So we're going to take some time to learn sound design and how sound design works in Premiere Pro. To do this, we're going to break it down to 3 stages: using whooshes for movement, using textured sound effects, and using risers. Spend some time learning each stage so that you can develop really good sound design and take your video to the next level. At this point, you've learned advanced animations, presets, plugins, sequence, and sound design. You're basically ready to learn how to edit engaging styles, but there's a few more things that we're going to need to do before that. On day 12, we're going to get into text styles and text animations. Using your improved knowledge in graphics and creating smooth animations, it's time to create 3 text styles that you're going to be using. One with a glow to highlight special objects, one that is clean for subtitling your words, and one that is bolder to use for highlighting important words. And with this done, you're going to want to take some time to create a few nice text animations for them. My advice is to create a pop-up animation and some kind of slide animation and some kind of rotation animation. And with this all done, you are ready for day 13. And on day 13, we're going to have our second test. This is going to be a big day for you. Using your knowledge of editing so far, you're going to need to find a YouTube video that is completely unedited, or check out the link down below where you can download some free raw footage. Then you're going to need to clip a 1-minute segment of a section that you find super interesting. And with this done, you're going to be responsible for taking this 1-minute clip, cutting it up, pasting it with your J-cuts, animating some fancy animations for the intro, editing the rest of the video, and sound designing the whole thing. And if you've done everything right, then you'll end up with a very impressive video that is very well edited. And at the end of the video, we're going to be using these videos to show you guys how you can get your first clients. Once again, on the 14th day, to avoid burning out, you're going to need to take a break. Enjoy it, let your mind relax, and just get comfortable. Now I understand this is getting a bit confusing and it feels like there's just so much to do, which is why I've created Ultimate Editors. See, we've streamlined this process so much to make it as easy as possible for you to become a professional editor. Once you join Ultimate Editors, you can start with the Premiere so that you don't forget so that you learn to equip you with long-form editing Q&A calls. A professional editor, and it's also the most affordable. All being said, let's dive into week 3, in which we're going to be learning an engaging short-form editing style. Starting off with day 15, in which we're going to be doing some research, scripting, and recording. Start off by searching for a well-known short-form editing style that you like. Now I want you to choose one of the creator's shorts and script out everything that he has said. And once you have that script, I want you to go ahead and record a replica of that short. So very simple, find the short, script, and record. And on day 16, we're going to go back to the editing side of things. We'll start off by making our cuts to the short and removing all the silences and bad takes, etc. Then we're going to try and follow the creator's pace. You don't want to go too fast and you don't want to go too slow. And the main focus of day 2 is going to be to try to recreate the intro of the short that we liked. It's most likely going to be made up of many animations and graphical elements and stuff, which is good because this is going to allow us to start learning on the fly and animating new concepts as we go. Now make sure not to watch any tutorials on it yet. I want you to just try this and see what you can come up with, and by the end of this you should have a somewhat well edited intro. Now on day 17 you're going to want to recreate the rest of the video. Go through the video clip by clip, see what your creator did and what animations he used and what graphical elements the clip was made up of, and mimic the exact same thing for your own video. This will teach us how we can keep a video engaging and also a bunch of new editing techniques. And ultimately this is how you learn as an editor. It's going to take you some time, but you should end up with a nicely edited video. Now on day 18 you're going to want to focus on the sound design side of things. Study the creator's sound design, like what sound effects he uses and how frequent they are, then replicate the exact same thing. Start with the movement sound effects, then the texture sound effects, and then the risers and hits. And with this all out of the way, you're going to have a fully edited and sound design video ready to use. Now keep in mind, you should have done all of this without watching any tutorials on how to actually make it. So this was just your own attempt at understanding it and trying to remake it, which allows you as an editor to practice the skill of remaking and replicating things and creativity on the fly. But now on day 19, it's time to study multiple tutorials on how to actually edit this short. So study and note down every single thing that they have done different, and find the major differences between the way that you edited the short and the way that a professional did it. And at that point, you should have a list of different things that you could change. And that's why on day 20, we finished it off by remaking the whole short. But this time, we're going to use the correct technique. And this is the ultimate way to maximize learning. Try, fail, learn, and correct. I promise you, if you do this in any area of your life, you will be exponentially successful. And on day 21, you guys know the drill. Get some rest, exercise a little, go on a hike, see a waterfall, just do anything. But make sure you get yourself ready for week number 4. Now on week number 4, we're going to be finishing off our plan. We've already learned an engaging short-form editing style, now it's on to learning a long-form one. And on day 22, same as before, research and study. Find out what your favorite long-form editing style is and study the different aspects of it. But this time, instead of editing the whole thing, you're just going to take a 1-minute segment that you really like. And you can either script and record a video that's exactly like it, or you can check out the link down below where I've got some unedited raw footage for you guys to download. But I want you to study the video that you took from your favorite creator and note down these things. How does he show his points? Is it animations, images, or videos? How intense is the video? Is it calm or constantly edited? And what's his structure like? Is he telling a story, sharing information, or showing a certain thing? And what is the viewer constantly focusing on? And on day 23, we're going to start off with the pacing and the intro. Start by chopping up your footage and removing all your silences, then match the creator's pacing, not too fast, not too slow. And once you've done that, get straight into editing the intro. This is going to be a bit tricky, but you're going to want to replicate the animation, style, and editing from the original intro. Once again, this is the ultimate way to learn editing. With your current editing knowledge, try and get as close as possible to the original style. And this is how you're going to learn to create engaging intros. Now on day 24, you're going to want to edit the rest of the 1-minute video in the style that you chose. Now as you're watching the video, you're probably going to notice that the creator is trying to bring across a certain point to the viewer. Now your job as an editor is to bring that point across visually, and how you do that is through the editing style that you've chosen. And you most likely won't be able to finish this whole process in one day, which is why on day 25, you're also going to be continuing this process. Focus on all the micro details, focus on the quality over quantity, and really emphasize making a masterpiece. Now after your long hard labor, you should end up with a video that is smooth and nicely edited, which is why on day 26, we're going to be recreating the sound design. Once again, find out what your creator uses for sound design and remake it. Start with the movement and the textures, then the risers and hits. And lastly, on day 27, as usual, we're going to take some time to study what we've done wrong. So watch a lot of tutorials on the editing style that you've chosen and note down everything that they have done differently. Focus on their technique and the specific way that they do things. Then go in and change what you've done wrong and learn it, so that the next time that you do this, you're at least a tiny bit better. Stack up tiny wins over a long period of time, and before you know it, you're the best editor in the space. And to finish our 30-day plan, on day 28, we're going to be doing something very special. You see, on week 1, you learned the fundamentals of editing and created a basic video. I want you to take that basic video. And on week 2, you learned the advanced editing concepts and made another video. I want you to take that video as well. On week 3, we learned a short-form editing style and you edited a video in that style. I want you to also take that video. And on week 4, you learned an engaging long-form editing style and also edited a video with the long form style, I want you to take that video as well. So by now you should have 4 different videos. Here's what you're gonna do with them. First of all, make a social media account on Twitter, Instagram, and then we're gonna make 3 main posts. The first one is gonna be a before versus after, comparing your basic edit which you did in week 1 and the advanced edit which you did in week 2. The second one is gonna be the short form editing style that we did. This time you're gonna place the video that you edited with the timeline under it, and your third post is gonna be a before versus after of the long form edit that we did. Now chances are if you've watched this far, you've done it all in one sitting and you haven't taken action yet, but you're about. So there are 2 main things that you could do right now. Number 1, I've made a PDF of the 30-day plan where you can track everything that you're gonna need to do every single day and all the goals you have for every week to become a professional editor within 30 days. If you want to download it, it's completely for free. Just go ahead and scroll down, click on the link down below. I'll need your email to send it over. And if you don't want to do all the research yourself and worry about the hassles, we've streamlined this entire process to make it super easy in Ultimate Editors. So instead of worrying about all the questions that you might have and not finding tutorials and not knowing how to do things, all you gotta do is tune in, watch a few courses a day, use the provided footage that we give you to practice them. And if you have any questions, ask us on the weekly Q&A calls. And think of it this way, it's a $47 investment that's gonna make you a professional editor, and you know for sure by joining our community, you're gonna be able to remake the same amount that you invested within just editing maybe 2 or 3 shorts for a future client. All you gotta do is head over to ultimateeditors.com and we're gonna take it from. Once again, thanks a lot for watching. If you found this video useful, give it a big thumbs up and subscribe for more. And thank you for sticking all the way through. I'll see you guys in the next video, and God bless each and every single one of you guys. See ya.
Learning to edit can feel super overwhelming. There are so
This is Frank.
Learning to edit can feel super overwhelming. There are Learning to edit can feel super overwhelming. There are so many tools, so many tutorials, it's hard to know even where to start. And I've been there, but after a decade of editing experience, I figured out a process that actually works. So in this video, I'm gonna walk you through the exact roadmap I would take if I were learning editing today. Whether you're editing for YouTube, commercials, music videos, I've done them all, and this process will actually help you move forward. And if you stick around to the end of the video, I'll share the secret skill that will turn you into a master at editing.
You gotta just press record.
Hey, what's up? Nate here with 𝗙𝗂𝗵𝗶 Media. So I probably edited close to 1,000 videos over YouTube, commercials, music videos, short films. I've done them all, and I started out messy. And I wish there was a video that could kind of clearly give me an outline on how I would learn editing. So I thought I would share this all with you guys. So let's go ahead into tip number 1, and that is start with what you have. Really, you have to learn the basic fundamentals of editing before you even consider some of the technical aspects. Just getting your hands dirty is the best way to go forward. When I got my start, I used iMovie on my phone, and it wasn't ideal editing like that, but what it taught me was the skill of editing, when to trim, when was the right timing, editing music, making sure I set the volumes right. You can do all those in any basic editing program. And once you're ready to graduate to a higher level editing program, there are plenty to choose from Final Cut Pro, Premiere, DaVinci Resolve. I've used all 3 of those throughout my editing journey, but the program I would recommend starting off with today is actually DaVinci Resolve. Number 1, you can get started with the free version of it, which is super powerful. And if you do want the full studio upgrade, it's only $300 one-time fee. You're not paying a subscription. It's a huge benefit getting started with that, and that can take you all the way up to your full professional editing needs. From there, you want to learn some basic editing tools. So any of these editing programs is going to have a cut, trim, ripple, delete function. Understanding these tools early on is going to help fundamentally improve your video editing later down the road. Honestly, 90% of what editing is using this blade tool. So you want to get familiar with it, take it out to dinner. You want to get comfortable and understand how to use these tools, because the better foundation you lay early on is just going to improve your further editing before we get into the more advanced territory. This next step is building a habit that you need to start from the very beginning, and that is organization. Organizing your workflow, your different projects. Anytime you start a new project, I like to give it a name that I can later reference to. I might even put the date on it. Then separating those into A-roll, B-roll, sound effects, music, project files, all those things. The better organization you have from the start, the easier it is to be able to reference files later, especially when you start working with clients. Maybe you're collaborating. There's been so many times I'm working with another editor and the projects are a mess and I don't know how to reference it. And I just have to re-edit the whole thing in my particular way because it is such a mess. So the more organized you are, the more valuable editor you are going to be for others and for yourself. Maybe you need to reference your video from a few years past. Being able to have everything nice and organized is going to be such a time saver. Get started with organization. So the first half of this editing journey is really just understanding the basics, getting a good foundation, which brings me to my next tip. You want to have simple, clean edits before you even worry about fancy transitions or different effects. Just being able to tell a linear story, like if I'm talking in front of the camera, making sure I know when to cut, not to leave too long of a breath, making sure that the audio is smooth and is at appropriate level, that the music isn't too loud. All these things are just the basics, the fundamentals. But if you can nail this down, you can make any video entertaining and pleasing to watch despite whatever project may call to your needs. This applies to YouTube, this applies to commercial, promotional films, music videos. All this stuff, all these skills are going to be important to learn early on. Personally, I'd rather watch a simple video that looks and sounds decent than something with flashy effects trying to grab my attention. I would even go further in saying that having clear titles and text is so important. A lot of people will throw text on screen, but it's hard to read. They choose a bad color, a bad font, or just in a bad position and you can't read it. If you're going to have text on screen, it has to be legible. So adding things like a drop shadow when it's appropriate so your text pops on screen. All these things are important to learn, and just understanding some basic graphic design, knowing where to put text, using lower thirds, brackets, markers. All of those things are going to be tremendously helpful. Now this video is definitely an overview, but if you want to dive in and actually see how to do these things, actually use the tools, I have a full video editing a YouTube video in DaVinci Resolve from start to finish. You can follow it step by step, download footage, follow along with me. I'll leave a link in the description to that video, or you can watch it at the end of this one. At this point, you should be able to edit a good basic video, but if you're like me, it took a long time to do so, which brings me to the next point, and that is to speed up your workflow. You want to become a more efficient editor. That is going to make you more valuable if you're looking to pursue this as a career, or, you know, that editing just takes hours at a time. Be able to edit it faster means you can make more videos, be more creative with it. So the first thing I would learn is some keyboard shortcuts. This is going to be dependent on which editing program you use, but learning the ones that are already built into your editor is just going to help speed up the actual amount of time you are literally cutting each thing. So for me, the blade tool is B, so you can just press the B button and it'll make a cut. You can use ripple delete like we said. Mapping that all out on keyboard shortcuts is going to drastically improve the speed at which you can edit. So definitely spend some time, look up some tutorials, get familiar. You can customize it to fit your needs, and that is going to help speed up. So as you go through your editing journey, another thing that is going to be really useful in speeding up your workflow is building an asset library. Downloading some of your favorite sound effects, musics that you like to use, different stock footage, LUTs, different assets you can put together and have in one place. This has been a huge help for me as an editor for Think Media and now shooting and editing videos. By having these references I can just pull from and build out different asset packs for me is just a great thing. So getting started on this early is something I wish I'd done, kind of slowly collected these over time. I've only started doing it in the last couple years, but get started right away. Just start building those folders of the musics, the sound effects that you like. Now, another tool that's going to drastically speed up your editing process if you are doing talking head videos such as this is a tool called 𝗙𝗂𝗵𝗶. They're actually sponsoring today's video. And what this tool does is a huge time saver. What it'll do is take your A roll and it will automatically cut to diversify, expand your skills. Really, you need to edit anything or in everything, because this is going to help you be more broad in your skills. For me in my journey, I've edited YouTube videos, commercials, narrative films, music videos, weddings. And the funny thing about editing is anything you learn in those fields will transfer over into, let's say you're doing commercials, then you edit for YouTube, and then you want to edit a music video. All those things will transfer. For example, before my job here at Think Media, I did commercials. And so I would be editing these mini documentaries, promotional videos, and I had to learn how to edit a 30-minute interview down to basically a 15-second ad that would run on TV. And that was incredibly hard to do. But when I got the job here at Think Media, I had a video of Sean's that was around 20 minutes. It was kind of rambly, but I was able to take that video, cut it down to 8 minutes of just pure, concise, valuable information, and that skill transferred. I was able to apply those things in another field and it became more valuable. Now that I had that experience, I can apply it to a new field and become a very valuable editor. So if I were starting over again, I would be willing to edit anything. It didn't really matter what it is. If my friend had a video that needed edited, learning those skills would be so valuable. And then from there, you might even get paid gigs from that circle group, build up a small portfolio, be able to get jobs from there. And learning those skills is going to be great for your editing journey. So up to this point, we built a solid foundation. These next few steps is where we're going to dive into some more intermediary skills. The first of which is to seek feedback and improve. When you start editing and you've edited for a while, you can become blind to some of your mistakes and errors. And one thing that I was very fortunate to have a little bit later in my editing journey was to be able to work with people that actually gave me constructive criticism, and was good constructive criticism that allowed me to see where I was making mistakes and further improve those. Now, I gotta be honest, a lot of your editing is just going to be learned through mistakes, but if you can have someone look over your shoulder and point out some of those things, you're going to drastically be able to identify those problems and fix those. For example, when I get done with an edit, what I like to do is sit back, watch it. Maybe I have my brother or a friend watch the video, and by the act of them watching it, I began to analyze my video a little bit differently, and I'd be able to see when things are slow, when I need to, maybe something I thought was funny wasn't actually as funny, or maybe it was funny and I'm more reassured in that I got the laugh when I wanted to. So showing your work in front of people and listening for constructive criticism is going to drastically improve your skills as an editor, and you're going to be able to make better videos, better films, much more efficiently. You'll be able to see those problems and fix them. I know a lot of beginners, and maybe even myself when I was starting out, have a lot of pride in their editing, and after they spent hours putting together this awesome project and then they watch it and maybe people do give feedback and you're like, oh, well, you just didn't get it. You just didn't get it. You know, having that humble attitude and be able to see where things are not working and be able to fix them is going to be huge. People are inundated by media. We are very experienced on knowing what's good about a TV show, when editing feels wrong, even though if we don't have the words for it, people can see when something's off. But if you can learn from those people that give you that feedback, sit back and actually figure out, why wasn't it working? How can I speed this up? Maybe how do I slow things down a bit? The other tip is to study other creators. So for example, if you are editing for YouTube, watch some of your favorite creators and start analyzing how they edit their videos. An exercise that you can do is after you watch a video, watch it back with the sound off and just take note of how fast they're editing, when things speed up, when they're on the talking head video, when they cut away to B-roll. For example, something I noticed that 𝗕𝗏𝗵𝗏 will do is he will be on the talking head when he's making a point, and he might even do a digital zoom in when he really wants to emphasize something. And because I was being observant on how his videos are edited, I can take those same ideas and edits and apply them to my videos. So if I make a point, I can draw you in, or I can go back out. Now, many people will stop at just watching their favorite creators and they don't do anything else, but I get really inspired by watching people outside of the niche I watch, or watching movies, TV shows, and seeing how they piece together things and tell a story when you don't have the best quality footage and you got to make something work. These skills that you can learn by just being really observant is going to be awesome. So these last two tips are going to help take you from the intermediary phase into the professional. And by now, you probably have edited hundreds of videos and probably have a good idea of what you like to edit and what you don't like. It's now time to get some more advanced skills and to specialize. We became a good general editor where we can edit for anything, but no one wants to edit everything. We want to kind of specialize in something that we truly love. So whether that is YouTube videos in the education niche like I'm doing now, or if it is commercials, music videos, you want to start learning the skills that are going to make you stand out in those fields. So if I wanted to become an editor for Netflix, what I would probably start learning is some storytelling techniques, getting proper pacing, watching film masters, and honestly, there's professional movie editors making tutorials on YouTube. It's wild. Paying attention to those tutorials on how people edit, learning the emotion, pacing, even maybe some color grading techniques to really become a more well-rounded film editor. I would start specializing in those techniques. Versus if I were on YouTube, I might still learn some storytelling, but I would be paying attention to pacing, the clarity of how I convey the content, maybe some motion graphics skills so I can have great visuals for my videos. Now, if you want a much deeper level of editing knowledge, I highly recommend the book Edit Better by 𝗪𝗏. If you're looking to incorporate storytelling into your edits or keeping the viewer-centric mindset throughout your videos, and also just like working with clients, there's some pretty practical advice in this book. I'll leave a link in the description down below. Which brings me to my next tip, and that is consistency is key. The only way you're gonna get better at editing is to edit. You're training your brain at solving a puzzle, but there's no picture on the box and you're missing some of the pieces. The way you're gonna learn and how it's going to work for you is by sitting there and trying different things, experimenting. A lot of what I do as a professional YouTube editor and now creator is you do much of the similar things and you're up against a deadline, you're trying to constantly get something done and then you move on. But I found a lot of times when you can make time to improve something, improve your hook a little bit, taking the time to learn a different effect, those things just add a little bit of spark back into what you do, and you feel yourself progress and try new things. Throughout my whole journey, I have been fairly consistent when it comes to editing. Again, probably, no doubt, I think I'm close to editing 1,000 videos if I tally everything up, which is really crazy to think about. And so by showing up, even when it's challenging, even when you're struggling to edit, by just being consistent at it, maintaining that threshold of quality has been a huge thing in my career. Being able to maintain high quality standard for every video that I'm making. You know, I may not be able to get to perfection, but get it to a good level and then move on to the next project. And that continual process is going to help you, inform you, and you're going to just naturally become a better editor. And eventually you'll look back 10 years and now you're teaching people how to edit. Pretty insane. Now I mentioned that there is a secret skill that is going to turn you into a master at editing, and that is to be continually observant. By observing TV shows, movies, YouTube videos, and just understanding how people edit, watching breakdowns on how people edit. I often like to look at deleted scenes of movies and realize, oh, that felt really off. I see why they deleted that. So all of that, just being observant on what you do and just learning to apply those things too, is what's going to really transform you and take you to that next level. If you want to take your first step into your editing journey, I have a full video going step by step how I would edit a video inside DaVinci Resolve. You can watch that video right here.
10,000 hours is a lot of time to
Learning to edit can feel super
10,000 hours. $10,000 is a lot of time to put into something. It is a popular belief that in order to become an expert in anything, you need to hit this 10,000 hour mark. Well, I could probably say that I'm an expert in editing now. I have learned so much things over these years, and there's still so much to learn. But after editing for more than 10,000 hours, I found that there are 5 extremely important things that I wish I knew when I started. And these things are probably stopping you from becoming a better editor. Number 1. You're not valuing your time. We all know that editing is definitely not a quick process. We have done many things to try to make it easier and faster, but one of the most important things an editor needs to be good at is shortcuts. This is a huge problem I've seen in the editing community. Every editor uses shortcuts, and we all know shortcuts are so goddamn important, but 90% of the editors I know are not using them correctly. Look at this panel in Premiere Pro. Normally, you would have to right-click to look at all these options, and some of these even got subfolders to even more options. Imagine how much time you waste being in this panel. If you use shortcuts, you wouldn't even need to open this panel in the first place. As a matter of fact, you can learn so much shortcuts that you wouldn't even need to open any of these panels. Do not underestimate shortcuts. Shortcuts are like my meth. I have 2 mouses. One of them is strictly for speed editing, and the other mouse has 12 programmable keys on them. And then I have a keyboard with a few more macro keys. And not too bad, right? That's nothing compared to this amazing Stream Deck. For example, if I press this +3 decibel icon, it will add +3 decibels to my audio, instead of having to manually type it in. God, that's dumb. Or this close gap one, where it closes all gaps inside of my timeline. If you don't have a shortcut for that one, you would have to go all the way up to the sequence and find this one. Oh, hell no. And I don't have just one of these, and not even 2. I got 3 of these things. Whoa. These things are pretty expensive. What if I can't afford them? Great question. You don't need these things. If you just have a keyboard, that's all you need to start making shortcuts. This has saved me hundreds of hours, and with this simple trick, you'll be editing 3 times faster. There's a lot of tutorials online, but I have a method that will make you a shortcut master. Let me show you. Start by making shortcuts for your most frequently used actions, and as you edit more videos, add more shortcuts. But don't make too many shortcuts at once. Just learn maybe 1 or 2 at a time, and each day just start adding another one. It's that easy. Don't try to rush it and learn 20 in a day. I did that. Don't do that. And speaking of easy things, number 2, editing is not as hard as people think. Let me explain. You see, in order to be an elite editor, you need to have 2 key things. First is going to be your technical knowledge, and second is your creative knowledge. Most people tend to be a lot more creative than they are technical. How do I know this? It becomes obvious when you realize that most editors are always looking at tutorials. They have the creativity to want to use it, but they don't have the technical skills to actually make it. This is why most editors find themselves stuck. They have great ideas, but they don't know enough about their software. There is a fix to this though. If you want to be better at your technical knowledge, look at other creators and break down segments of their video. And in those segments, look at every small detail that you can find and start adding things bit by bit. When you do this, I want you to imagine how you would do it in your timeline. This is one of the fastest and easiest ways to be more technical. It's way better than just copying someone else's tutorial step by step. Yeah, that method never really worked. But this method actually gives you a deep understanding about how things work. So what about creative knowledge then? How do we grow that? I hear all the time that you need to be naturally creative to be an editor. This is just completely false. Creativity isn't just having a light bulb moment. It's about having a good chunk of knowledge on different topics. Imagine you know all these things about editing versus someone who only knows these. Each one of these things only make your video better. So let's combine some of these things together. Hey look, you just made my video. This is what creativity truly is. The more you know, the more creative you're going to be. Therefore, the less you know, the less creative you are. So if you don't know enough, don't be afraid to learn new things. Learning is only going to make you a better editor, and everything that you need to know is online. But where online should you start looking? This brings us to number 3. Everything you need to know is on YouTube. I always thought the biggest YouTube creators always had some sort of secret to their success. Some secret information that only the people at the top knew. This is what Mr. Beast has to say about this.
And what's even more interesting is I go on podcasts and I say everything I know. It's all out there. And a lot of people, instead of just studying that and trying to absorb and apply it in their own way, they're just like, no, it's just luck.
Even Mr. Beast says that everything he knows is already out there. And more specifically, YouTube. YouTube is a goldmine for learning anything. There is a world champion javelin thrower who is known as Mr. YouTube Man. He credits his success from learning the sport through YouTube. I don't think I need to say anything else about that. But if there is one thing that I really hate about YouTube, it's gotta be those annoying course sellers. The truth is, these gurus who sell you their courses are just damn liars. Most of the information on these courses are things that you can learn in just a few days. Trust me, I've tried a lot of courses. Never buy a course. All the information you could possibly want is on YouTube already. These creators really don't care about you or your goals. They just want your money. This is why you'll never see a 𝗕𝗂𝗵𝗆 Everything You Need in 6 Weeks course that for some stupid reason originally cost $100,000, but for a limited time, it's down to only $5,000. Like what? Everything you need to know about editing is already on YouTube and for free. There is a slight problem with this though. There's a little too much information out there, and it can be hard to find actually helpful information. I noticed there's only a few places where you can learn some of the best things. One of those places are going to be podcasts. I can't even express how helpful podcasts are. They're all you would ever need to become an expert. I wish I had known that, because when I first started, I watched videos like these. Just stick to podcasts. I do this because they explain so much, and they don't need to worry about making their videos shorter. The more information, the better. I'm going to leave some really helpful videos in the description, ones I've actually watched, and that helped me during my journey, if you buy my course. Just kidding. Number 4, editing blindness. Editing blindness happens when you've been working on a video for so long that you start missing important mistakes. You miss these mistakes because after looking at your video over and over, you get used to how the video looks and feels. Let me give you a great example. Editors spend a lot of time making sure the storytelling, visuals, and flow of the video feels great. Now, when we do this, we often overlook other parts of the editing process. Let's say that the music was too loud. Although that seems like an easy fix, at that moment, it's definitely not. Because you were so focused on the storytelling and visuals, now when you look at your video again, you don't even notice that for the whole video, the music was too loud. Because of that, viewers might struggle to hear what you're saying over the music. Just this alone can make your video flop. This is something I've seen a lot of beginners do, and sometimes even larger creators. A lot of it boils down to people trying to be perfect in their videos. Stop trying so hard to be perfect. It's okay if your graphics don't look like some Netflix documentary. Just don't make them look bad. Everyone thinks that people are looking at every single frame in their video, and when they see something wrong, and it got boring really quick. And it got boring really quick. Really quick. There was this one time I made a video where I accidentally blurred out some really important captions. I panicked and texted him, "Yo, I messed up the captions." He messaged me back saying that he already uploaded the video. In my head, I thought, well, I'm screwed. But that was not the case. For some apparent reason, the video got 1 out of 10 in his video performance. What's even funnier is that I checked the comments fully expecting people to be hating. And there was a comment about the captions. Look at what they said. "I loved how he blurs out the numbers. That's smart." You gotta be kidding me. So now that we know that editing blindness can ruin your video, what can you do to avoid it? Well, have someone else look at your video. The more people you have watch it, the more mistakes you're going to see. I always make sure at least 10 people look at my video before I post it. Or you could just do the easiest thing and just take a break. Taking a step away from editing can refresh your mind and will help you start seeing your work from fresh eyes again. You shouldn't neglect taking breaks. Which brings us to our last point. Number 5, don't overwork yourself. You see, editors have a very time-consuming job, and it can be very stressful at times. Like when we can't find the right footage to put in your video, or even worse, when you can't find the right song. It's easy for an editor to overwork themselves, and this can lead you to an editor's worst nightmare.
Burnout.
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 How do you prevent this from happening to you? Well, you need to set realistic deadlines. These massive timelines that I have didn't just take days. These can take weeks. So if someone only gives you 3 days to edit a 20-minute video full of motion graphics and crazy effects, just get the hell out of there. This is my process for editing videos. Your process may be different, but what I would do is figure out how long each one of these processes are going to take. Then just add all those together and slam in an extra 1 to 2 days, and that'll be a pretty accurate deadline. Damn, I wish I knew all these things when I first started. Let me know in the comments if these 5 things really helped you. I'll see you next time.
Something strange is happening on YouTube.
$10,000 hours is a lot of time. Just add all those together and slam it in an What I would do is figure out how long each one of these processes are.
Something strange is happening on YouTube. They just made a big update on their algorithm, and I've never seen anything like this in my 10 years on YouTube. So if you've been thinking about starting a YouTube channel, you gotta listen carefully, because if you take advantage of this now, it's gonna make you more money than you thought possible. Now, you're not gonna see opportunities like this very often on YouTube, and the people who start now are gonna have a massive advantage. So today I'm gonna show you what that big update is, and I'm also gonna show you 3 specific video formats that work best for 2025. And I'm also going to show you what smart creators are doing to make 6 figures even with a small audience. So here's what's happening. Have you guys been seeing small channels being promoted on your YouTube home feed? In the past few weeks, I've been seeing very small channels, channels that are under 500 subscribers, 200 subscribers. They're all showing up in my home feed. And they're actually showing up right next to big creators with millions of subscribers. Like this channel here who has about just 600 subscribers, and this one's got 200 subscribers. And it's not just me, everybody's seeing this as well. Everyone's starting to see videos from smaller channels getting pushed by YouTube on our home feeds. And because they're being recommended by YouTube, they're getting views very quickly. Just look at these videos here. They're getting massive views, even though they just have a tiny audience. And this is happening because YouTube has made an update to their algorithm, and they're intentionally promoting new channels. In fact, 𝗙𝗵𝗿, one of the YouTube top guys, actually confirmed this publicly. He said that they have a dedicated team whose only job is to help small creators get discovered. Now, this is the first time in YouTube's history that they've put so much focus on growing new channels. And if you think about this, this actually makes a lot of sense because YouTube makes money from ads, right? So the more creators there are making good videos, the more ads they run, the more money YouTube makes. But now the question is, why help small creators? Because you see, when a small creator starts getting views, they're more likely to keep making videos. And when their audience grows, YouTube can now show even more ads. So it is a snowball effect, and it's a win-win for everybody. So when people say YouTube is saturated, it's too crowded, that would be false. YouTube is giving the opportunity for small channels to be discovered. And all I just need is that opportunity and take advantage of it. Now, the next question is, what type of content works best on YouTube today? So You don't want to create just random videos and hope something will stick. I spent many years studying what's working on the platform, and I've noticed that there are 3 main types of content that are absolutely crushing it right now, and this will continue to perform in 2025. And when I say crushing it, I mean these videos are getting views consistently and they're actually making money. And before I get to it, let me tell you about today's sponsor, Zen Business. So if you're thinking about starting a business, this is super important. Setting up an LLC is critical for protecting your personal assets. Without one, if your business gets sued, they can come after your house, your car, everything. So an LLC creates that separation. So only your business for sponsoring today's video. Now back to the video. Now the first one here is what I call journey videos. So these creators simply document their daily lives. They're showing people what they're working on without any editing or fancy editing. Not a year, but a month. Or take this other creator here, Cardinal Mason. His whole channel is focused on one thing. That is teaching people on how to become professional copywriters. But here's the really important part, and this is what most people miss.
If you haven't heard, there's a new report from Google and YouTube that reveals why some YouTube channels grow, why others do not. The truth is the YouTube growth landscape program, but you're getting it 𝗙𝗂𝗵𝗶-𝗀𝗍challenge.com to register. A challenge YouTube description who demonstrate how they gained their knowledge. The insight is showing how you learn something builds more credibility than simply stating the facts. It also just generally makes things more interesting because we want to see the process and the journey, and the study backs this up. And I think a great example of this at a higher level is Mark Rober, who's got a super cool YouTube channel. He's done a lot of things where he sort of surprises and scams the scammers. And he's done some videos where he had these squirrel obstacle courses. Those are my favorite ones. And oftentimes he shows the prototypes, he shows the failed attempts, and he shows the process. It'd be one thing to just show the final squirrel obstacle course and the squirrels going through it, but he really brings you in along the journey. And so here's some thoughts on how you could apply this one. You could include segments showing your research process, showing your notes, showing how you figured something out. Again, if maybe you had a fitness channel, it's kind of a good example. There's something about seeing the journey and the transformation and the process and the failure along the way as you document the journey and show the ups and downs, as opposed to just, yeah, I did the workouts and here's the final result. People are like, okay, cool. But show me the ups and downs, the pain, the good and the bad. Show me the failed attempts and the prototypes and the things that you learned. Bottom line is that viewers trust creators who demonstrate how they gain their knowledge, not just showing off the knowledge that they gained. All right, next insight. Create multi-part content that rewards regular viewers. Here's the stat. Series viewers show 14% higher engagement than random video watchers. The insight is connected content builds stronger viewer loyalty than standalone videos. So ask yourself this question, not just what video should I make next, but what series should I make next? There are a lot of creators out there that understand the power of not just creating standalone videos, but creating series. I think of Matt D'Avella. He usually will, take a topic and go pretty deep in it, sometimes not just doing kind of a mini documentary, but extending it over a multi-part series, which leaves you hanging and wanting more. My attempt to apply this point was realizing how many insights are in this report that are directly applicable to your next video. So I thought, rather than share all 15 in one episode, how about I do about 5 per episode? And that's what we're doing here. So subscribe for the rest of the episodes in this very series, trying to practice what I'm learning from the report. Next, be real about your mistakes and your learning moments. Here's the stat. Brain scans show 63% stronger viewer connection during moments of vulnerability. Here's the insight. Sharing struggles builds more trust than only showing successes. And so you can see that some of these are stacking, but I think there's some nuance to this. The key word here being vulnerability. I heard it said once that people need to hear about your struggle before they connect with your success. And in a lot of the entrepreneurs that I've coached, I've found that they struggle with this one. I think the myth is, people want to know that I overcame the problem. They want to know that I solved it. Look at me now. I'm successful now. And I'm kind of, it's not like they're doing it from a prideful or arrogant place, but they are kind of doing it from a powerful place, thinking like that's what's going to connect with people. And the truth is, it actually, if you miss this piece, it can actually be a block to connection with people. And it's not that you don't want to share your successes, because especially if you're teaching something, most people want to learn from somebody who's achieved the result. It's just the fact that people connect with your struggle before they connect with your success. So this ties into the storytelling, but it takes it deeper to say it's not just in telling stories, but specifically tell stories about genuine challenges. Where have you failed? Where have you stumbled along the way? Sometimes what can happen too is we just forget where we came from. And it's maybe been so long, like I have to always remind myself, especially now that I built multiple different YouTube channels, I got to go all the way back to the fear of getting on camera and what are people going to think. Go back to the frustration of working so hard on videos and those views being incredibly low. And it's like I've edited a video for 7 hours and it only got 7 views. And that makes you want to give up. And be intentional about remembering about the path I have personally walked, a path full of failure and mistakes and scrapes and scars. I think that I hold the record for making the most mistakes out of any YouTube creator. I've posted enough videos and made enough bad videos that I eventually got to some good ones. And so an application for this is consider in your next video, not just sharing stories to illustrate your points and not just sharing successes, but also sharing your struggles. And I did receive one final piece of advice on this that I think is invaluable. And it was this: share your scars, don't share your open wounds. Because when we think about vulnerability, I think that it can at times be a mistake to be vulnerable about something that is not healed yet, or at least somewhat in scar form, but it's literally a gushing wound. It's super sensitive. We haven't fully processed it, and it just might not be the right time to vomit that into a YouTube video or all over social media. Just something to consider, that there's maybe certain stories that are appropriate for vulnerability and going to be helpful to others, and maybe others where if you just bleed on people and it's maybe a little bit toxic, hey, it's your channel, it's your content, but that advice has served me well. I think that all stories maybe can eventually be shared, but some maybe should be kept a little bit private until they've healed up a little bit more. Next insight: emotional connection beats video quality. Here's the stat: 97%. It's a wild number. Basically everybody, 97% of viewers prioritize emotional connection, while less than 1% care only about technical quality. Now, you might be new here, but if you've known me for a while, I started the 𝗕𝗵𝗵𝗵 channel, right? So I love cameras, I love lenses, I love gear. I got all this gear behind me. Listen, I'm all about that camera quality, that technical quality. I'm here for it. But here's what the data says: only 1% of viewers, like, that's what matters to them. Only 1% care about the technical aspects of a video, but 97% care about the emotional aspects. That's interesting because it makes me wonder. It's like, how much money have you invested in cameras or tech or lighting or plan to invest? And how much money have you invested in therapy and books and storytelling? Is it balanced? I don't know. Like, how tapped in are you to not just your emotions, but sharing emotions? And it's not like you have to, you got to just be yourself, but it's emotional connection, right? It's the emotional connection that really matters. The insight is viewers stay for authentic connection, not for production value. And I actually have a bunch of questions you can ask before hitting record to get into the right mindset and to get into the right, if you will, vibe for filming based on this point. Because developing your message more, developing your content more, and even emotional hooks is going to be better than tweaking the technical details. So here's like 5 questions to ask before you hit record. Number 1, what's the core emotion I want viewers to feel when watching this video? Is it inspiration, laughter, curiosity, comfort, a sense of community? Number 2, how does my experience connect to the viewers? Even if your topic is technical, find the human element. And that is that phrase we talked about, like, I used to struggle with this too, is a powerful starting point. I think back, I remember when I was starting and some of the emotions I felt and some of the overwhelm I felt. You also can share your why. Why does this matter to you? Not just what are the facts and the details, but the why behind it. Why are you passionate about this? Why do you care? Number 3, where can I inject vulnerability? This doesn't mean oversharing, but being genuine about your challenges. Did you make mistakes learning this? Did you have doubts? This builds trust and shows you're not the perfect expert. Number 4, how can I make this feel more like a conversation? So even though YouTube videos are solo, there's things you could do that better pull viewers in that can lead to that vulnerability and connection. You can use language like we. You can ask questions. And obviously that person's not there to respond, except maybe you're watching the YouTube version and they can reply in the comments, which is really cool about the fact that YouTube is a two-way conversation. But you might anticipate thoughts and what you might be thinking next. And you're like, that is what I'm thinking. And so it's kind of an art form and a skill to develop, but imagine you're explaining it to a friend. And I think it's just something to practice, but I do know that some creators have kind of a preachy tone to it, or it doesn't feel like I'm being included in the conversation, versus others kind of have this two-way conversation going. And so something to consider. Number 5, what's the takeaway beyond the information? So when you're planning your video, ask this question: how will this video leave the viewer feeling empowered? Is it a new skill? Is it a shift in mindset? Is it a sense of belonging? What do you want the viewer to feel, especially once the video completes? This is the so what that makes them care. Being thoughtful that like this is leading to something, that there is a aha moment. There's a so what to this. And there's an interesting concept called the epiphany bridge. And it's actually thinking about when crafting content that there's like a problem or an obstacle, and then there is a story. And the point of the story is to have a moral of the story that leads to an epiphany. And then as a result, the story helps someone overcome a limiting belief, overcome that obstacle, and arrive at a new destination. I hope that you experienced that multiple times on this podcast. That it's like, maybe I thought it was too late to start YouTube. And then I'll share with you a story about creators that are starting in the last 6 months and they are starting new channels and having success. And that might be an epiphany that like, it's not too late to start YouTube. And so there's an aha moment, there's a takeaway, or the new stats that are happening. So you're just structuring your video. Number 5, what's the takeaway behind this information? And how am I going to get people there with a lot of the tools we've been learning in this entire video? Storytelling, vulnerability. What epiphanies could I create on the journey along the way? Now, I've got one more insight to share with you, but I did want to give you a heads up that if you have not heard, our next free 5-day YouTube challenge is coming up soon, or it might already be happening right now. And you can check it out at 𝗕𝗲𝗵𝗶-𝗁𝗍.com. Whether you jump in partway through or whether you just register for the waiting list for the next one, our free YouTube challenges are incredible. People love them. It's all about how to get your first or next 1,000 subscribers. It's about the new ways and the fundamentals of how to build a side income and go full-time on YouTube. And we do a lot of giveaways of software, gear, tech, tools that will help you create content. And every single day we learn something, and every single day we have application. We are challenged to do something. The reason it's called a 5-day challenge is because it's going to be challenging you to define your niche and your topic better, or for the first time, challenging you to come up with better video ideas, structure and outline those videos, and even film a video. So whether you're already started on YouTube, but maybe you're feeling stuck, or whether you've been on the fence and you're like, now's my time, 2025 is my year, go to 𝗕𝗲𝗵𝗆𝗺𝗁𝗍.com to register for free, or check out the link in the show notes and you can be a part of our next challenge. Okay, here's our bonus point. You do not need the perfect set. Here's the stat. Research shows viewers trust content more when they can see it comes from a genuine place. And I know a lot of people sometimes feel like, man, I got nowhere to film in my house. I have nowhere to film in my apartment. And it's always like making excuses. Like one day when I'm able to clean up that YouTube background or buy that stuff on Amazon, or one day when I get that garage studio built that I want, or one day when my kitchen or my bedroom's cleaner. Listen, press record now. Research shows people just want to see the genuine. It's okay to film if your house is messy. If you're a parent like me, I got a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old, it is perpetual chaos in my house. And so the application is film in your actual environment instead of creating the perfect backdrop. Let viewers see where you really work and create, which I think ties into the theme of this first part of the 3-part series we are doing on the What We Watch 2.0 report, which, by the way, if you want to check this out, it's totally free. I'll link to Google, aka YouTube's report, so you can read it for yourself. And that'll be in the show notes. I'll also link to the 1K challenge if you want to register. And that'll be in the show notes as well. And hit subscribe, because I'll be coming at you with more insights that you can apply to your next video in part 2 on the Think Media podcast coming up soon.
In today's attention economy, video editing is truly a valuable skill set. It allowed me to go from being completely lost and broke just over 5 years ago to generating 7 figures online by age 21. And in this video, I'm going to tell you exactly what I would do step by step if I were to start over again from scratch, if I lost all my editing knowledge and experience. So I really hope you're going to enjoy this, and let's jump right into it. So the first step I would take is I would actually narrow down my aim. There are so many different types of videos that you could be creating. You could be making documentaries, finance videos, vlogs, and it's just too many different directions and too many different skills you would need to learn. So what I would recommend you to do is to really focus in on one genre of video editing and start getting better at just that at first, because this will allow you to learn so much quicker, because you will have a clear aim at what are the exact skills that you need to learn to be able to make those kind of videos at the highest level. Now, don't get me wrong, you don't need to stick with this just one genre forever, but it will make your learning process so much quicker, because you would edit a gaming video completely differently than you would edit a cinematic vlog, for example. Then the second step I would take is I would choose one platform and one video editing software, and I would actually stick with it. Now, the reason I'm saying this is because a lot of people, what they do when they get into video editing is they start with one software, then they move on to the other one, then their friend tells them that, hey, you should start using this other one. And what you are doing there is you are building a bunch of half-built bridges, right? You are never actually mastering any of them. And the reality is that in pretty much any video editing software, you can become really good at it and be able to edit at a high level only if you actually stick with it and take the time to master it. So choose one, in my opinion, whether you are going to go with Premiere Pro and After Effects or DaVinci Resolve or even Final Cut. It doesn't really matter as long as you actually take the time to stick with it and become amazing. The third step is to start emulating others. Now, I know that this can sound kind of weird, like you are trying to copy other people, but the way you can actually create your truly own unique style is by first copying from a bunch of people. Because if you recreate other people's edits, if you recreate other people's styles, it will allow you to learn how to do it. And then what you want to do is once you've learned, let's say 20 or 30 people's different editing styles, then you can take small elements from every single one of them and create your own style, right? There is this entire book around this concept of Steal Like an Artist, and I highly recommend it to you because it basically explains how the best creatives in the world, they also steal from other people, but instead of stealing from just one or two sources, they steal from dozens and dozens. So again, emulating other people's effects, styles, and just overall pacing even will not only allow you to learn the skill sets required to edit in that certain style, but it will also allow you to just build up this huge bank of different type of effects that you can create, from which you will be able to later on assemble your own editing style. You might believe that, hey, I need to be born with my own unique style and that's the only way to go around it, but it's really not the case. Most editors I've met who are amazing weren't born in a way where their editing style was just completely unique. No, most of the time what they do is they learn from a bunch of people. At first they emulate and then they can create their own style. So for example, if you're trying to break into the documentary editing space, then look at some of the most successful documentary channels on YouTube, download their videos, break it down into small bite-sized pieces and try recreating those same scenes, and that will allow you to become just so much better of an editor over time once you do it enough. The fourth step would be to join some communities and most importantly to get feedback on your work. Now, in my opinion, one of the quickest ways to get better at anything is to have a constant feedback loop between what you create and what other people who are ahead of you think, right? So basically, if you join some editing groups, whether it be paid or free, you are going to be able to submit your own videos videos and have other people who are already ahead of you in this journey look at it, give you some constructive criticism that you can then implement in your next video to make it better. And trust me, oftentimes you don't see the weaknesses in your own edits, myself included as well, so it can really help to get some outside eyes on your work, and it will just speed up your editing improvement insanely. Now, we also have our own editing group if you're interested in the description below, but if you can't afford to join a paid one yet, that's completely fine. There's tons of free Discord groups as well and school communities online if you look. Now, step 5 is to put in the reps. Now, I have seen some people go from absolutely not knowing anything about editing to in just 100 days becoming actually really good video editors who are landing paid clients. And for example, I remember this one person who was just 15 years old, and in like literally 3 months and a little, he went from 0 to making like 3K a month online consistently from his editing. Now, I'm not saying that most people are going to do this, because the reason he was able to do it is not just because he had a talent for it. Like, sure, he was probably already someone inclined to creative work, but also because he really put in the reps. He was basically grinding all his summer break and putting in 10 to 12-hour days every single day into his craft. So my point with this step is to really realize that there's no way around it. Obviously, if you join some communities, if you get some mentors, it will really speed up your workflow and your process and your learning. However, you can never skip putting in the reps. So if you cannot put in 12 hours a day, that's fine. Just expect it to take a little bit longer, but you need to remember that as long as you don't quit and as long as you stay consistent in your practice, you will never lose, right? You can only win. You just have to stick with it for long enough for it to work. Then step 6 is to drop your perfectionism. Now, I cannot tell you how many times I see this when somebody is trying to get better at editing, yet they take, let's say, 3 weeks on just one video. And the truth about this is that you will actually improve faster if you make more videos in the same amount of time than if you are just trying to perfect one video for weeks and weeks to come. There was actually this experiment where they took people who were making clay pots, and one of the control groups had to make as many clay pots as they humanly could in 1 week, and the other control group had to make just one perfect clay pot in 1 week. And you would think like, okay, well, if one group has just the task to only make one of the same thing and the other group has to make as many as possible, clearly the group that only has to make one will do better, right? No, the result was that the group who had to make as many as possible by the end of this experiment was making way better clay pots. So it's the same thing with editing. The more you do, the faster, the better you will get, at least from my experience. So remember, done is better than perfect. It's better to finish a video, even if it's only 85 or 90% of the way there, and make more videos. And that just repetition and again, putting in the work is going to allow you to become way better in the same amount of time. Then step 7 would be to focus on the foundations first and only move on to the more advanced strategies and effects later on. Now, in the beginning, it's very easy to get lured into wanting to make these crazy 3D animations and all of this fancy stuff in After Effects. But the truth is, until you have mastered the basics and know how to edit really well with even just clean cuts and good music and good pacing of the videos, you shouldn't be going into the more advanced things, right? Because you can make an insanely good video without any crazy 3D or animations if you just nail the basics down. However, you cannot make a bad video good by simply adding some complex and advanced elements to it. So focus on the basics first, master it, and then move on to the more advanced things. And last but not least, what I want you to remember is that failures are for learning, right? You want to embrace the failures and take the lessons from it, because we learn far more from them than the successes. If you make your first video and it's not going to be perfect and you get some feedback from other people on how you could improve it, that's okay, right? Nobody makes a perfect video. The lessons are hidden in the failures or the parts that you messed up, because there's nothing you can learn from a perfect video. If everybody's just telling you like, yeah, it's great as it is, there is nothing to take away from that. So embrace the failures, just don't quit, right? Keep getting better after every single video, stick with it, stay consistent, and I guarantee you, if you just really put your head down for the next 6 to 12 months at mastering this skill set, by the end of it, you're gonna look back and think like, damn, I came a long way. So I really hope you enjoy this video. If you want to learn more about the attention economy and the skills that you need to master in order to thrive in this economy, then go ahead and check out the other videos as well on my channel, and I will see you guys in the next one.
Just over 3 years ago, I quit my job at Aldi and gave myself 30 days to make something work online to make money. And during that process, I came across video editing. This is something I'd done on and off for years already, but never in a professional capacity for work. And 3 years on, thankfully, I can say I'm still editing videos professionally to this day. And I've learned a lot of lessons along the way too, and that's what I want to go over in today's video. So there are 4 core lessons that would have helped me in my early days of my freelance editing career that I want to go over in today's video. The first being that free work is your best friend. Some people have this idea that you should never do free work for anybody because it's a waste of your time, you know, like you deserve to get paid for the work you do. And to a degree, I do agree with that statement. But in the early days, clients have no proof that you can edit well. They have no proof that you're credible to do the job that they're looking for. So free work is a great way to show your ability up front so they can trust you, and also it shows that you're willing to work as well. They can see your work ethic through being willing to do free work. Now there are exceptions to this rule, like if a lead reaches out to you and they've already seen a lot of your work, it might not be a good use of your time to give them a free sample edit. But if you're just getting started and you have 0 portfolio, 0 previous clients, no credibility whatsoever, it is such a good idea to start doing free work, because sometimes all it takes is doing that one trial edit for that one lead for you to get your foot in the door with that one person, and then through working with one client, that can get you referrals to the next client, maybe friends of this first client, and then from there you might not need to do free work. So don't see it as a waste of time or that you're not being compensated fairly for the work you do. See it as work that just builds on your credibility and skill. So next up is setting the right boundaries. Once you have your first client, what you don't want to do is say yes to everything and just let them control how you work, because that is a very quick recipe for
Ten years ago, I began my video editing journey, and since then, hundreds of millions of people have seen the videos that I had a part in editing, which I think is pretty cool. I also have this YouTube channel where I teach video editing, and I own an organic video content agency, which has made tens of thousands of dollars for our clients within a year. So I'm gonna compress the biggest lessons I've learned from 10 years of video editing into this one video. Editing lesson number 1. Focus on the fundamentals before fancy editing. When I say fancy editing, I'm talking about the crazy motion graphics that you see on like every single video these days. I'm not saying motion graphics don't make your videos better, because they definitely do, but think about it like this. No matter how much you polish a rock, the rock is still just a rock. Stick with me. Imagine your rock is the raw A-roll that you have before you start editing a video. You can add motion graphics to this raw video, and it will appear slightly more polished, just like a rock would be slightly shinier if you polished it. But it's still just a raw video, with no cohesive story, no audio mixing, no sound design, no color, no cuts, no transitions. You get the point. These things, like rearranging the order of your cuts to tell a better story, are the bedrock of your video, the foundation of a great video, whereas sleek motion graphics are just the additions that make an already great video even greater. Now, some key fundamentals that you should focus on learning are cutting, which includes things like tightness of the cuts, types of cuts. For example, a J-cut might be used to emphasize a speech that goes on and on. We have pacing, which is how you decide to make cuts that influence how quickly the video progresses, and which changes the viewer's experience in the end. Sound design is a huge one. This includes music, sound effects, or how you might correct noisy audio from a bad mic to sound like it came from a good one. Color grading is important and is often overlooked in videos. Understanding design theory is huge, especially if you plan on learning motion graphics later. But this is just a start. I encourage you to dive deeper into each of these fundamental subjects and try to master them before trying to learn motion graphics too. If you're wondering how to learn about things like this, the best way to do that is from other people. Which brings me to editing lesson number 2. Become a student of the game. I've been editing videos for 10 years, and although I may continue for another 40 years, I realized that I will never know everything. Instead, I simply focus on learning things that will improve the project that I am currently working on. If you can bear it, you should go back and watch old videos that you edited to take notes on what could be improved. But I personally hate doing that, so I would never recommend it. But what I've found to be most effective is learning from others. There are 2 ways you can do this. The first way is easy, and it's by watching more videos. But you're not going to just mindlessly watch the video like usual. Instead, you're watching to see how the editing choices make you feel, what techniques they use to draw you in. For example, maybe you notice that the video uses incredibly simple animations to explain a complex topic. As a result, you felt smarter and were more engaged. If you find that you have a positive reaction to a section of a video, it's probably something you should try in your own editing. The second way you can learn from others is a mentorship, though this takes a lot more upfront work to find than the first method does. In fact, I didn't have this until 6 years after I edited my first video, and I deeply regret not seeking it out sooner. There are some things that you can only learn through years and years of experience that you can get from a mentor. And it's also hard to figure out what's worth learning in the beginning. When I had my first mentor, it was at a video editing agency, and I would have daily meetings with the lead editor who was able to show me how I could save hours on every single project. Like I said, this can be hard to find, but honestly, finding a mentor can speed up the learning process a ton. Speaking of speed, editing lesson number 3, you need to be efficient. If you ever plan on being a video editor professionally, time is of the essence. Why? Well, if you ever want to work with clients, you will likely have tight turnaround times, which is the time from asset delivery to the final cut that you deliver back to your client. Believe it or not, these times are often less than a week, and clients can be picky, so you usually need to budget time to make revisions too. Now that I've scared you enough, what can you actually do to become a faster video editor? Here are 5 key steps to be faster. 1. General comfort in your chosen program and the basics. This is unavoidable, and you can get better at this by watching video tutorials and just simply editing more. 2. Keyboard shortcuts. Trust me, these are a game changer. Learn these and you'll save at least 30 minutes every single day. 3. Plugins. If you can find the right plugins for your program, you're gonna save at least another 30 minutes per day using these. 4. Be adaptive. This means staying up to date with program updates, feature additions, and AI. 5. Learn other programs. For example, I use Premiere Pro to do most of my video editing, but I use things like Photoshop and Illustrator to make visuals for those videos, and I use After Effects to animate those visuals. If you want to dive deeper than these core 5 steps and really want to dial in your workflow, you should watch this video where I talk about 6 other things that you can do to edit your videos faster and stop wasting time. Editing lesson number 4. The best editing is when you hardly notice. If you're doing it right, your viewers should get lost in your story completely, unaware of the seamless cuts that you made or the way you rearranged the footage to tell the story. You see, your main goal as a video editor is to tell the story. That's it. Ignore everything else until you've pieced the footage together in a way that you have a story that you would watch if there was no other editing involved. Editing lesson number 5. You will be undervalued. You're competing with people from 195 different countries. Literally anyone in the world actually bring their own vision or a client vision to life. Also, when it comes to video editing and marketing as a whole, it's kind of hard to justify pricing because there usually isn't an immediate ROI from the videos that are being made. This means that people have no interest in paying for the video editors because they don't see it as a worthy investment. But there are people who understand the true value, and there are things that you can do to become more valuable as a video editor. These include improving your communication, demonstrating high-quality work over an extended period of time, quality and consistency, adaptability, design, expertise, strategy beyond editing, learning from mistakes, and justifying your decisions with your expertise. When you understand the why the videos you're editing are being made, you can make informed design decisions and maintain consistency throughout your work. These are things that many video editors fail to understand, and it can really set you apart. Editing lesson number 6. Perfection is pointless. When I started editing videos, I simply made the videos that I thought people would enjoy. But I realized that editing is heavily subjective. Some people may love the way a video is edited, when others might be bored in 10 seconds. This realization I had eventually led me to question pretty much every single editing decision I was making because I wanted to make perfect videos. The thing is, I still kind of do this, but because now I make better videos than I used to with less effort, I can usually ignore the idea of perfection. Point is, don't get lost in the idea of trying to make the perfect video. Instead, focus on improving in some small way with every new video that you edit. Also, try not to compare yourself with others. Nowadays, it's so easy to find videos that you think are better than yours, so instead of questioning your ability, giving up, and wondering if video editing is even right for you, just acknowledge parts of those videos that you liked, and maybe use them in your editing in the future. Editing lesson number 7. Creative burnout is inevitable. No matter what you do after years of editing,
After editing over 200 videos for 𝗕𝗏, I'm excited to share my step-by-step process on how to edit a YouTube video inside DaVinci Resolve. So even if you've never edited a video before, by the end of this tutorial, you'll have all the skills you need to create engaging and professional YouTube content. Let's dive in.
You gotta just press record.
What's up, Nate here with 𝗕𝗏. If you haven't already, go ahead and download DaVinci Resolve. It's in my opinion one of the best editing programs out there, and it's also free. So go ahead and click the link in the description to download. A simple shot of me making all the footage I'll be working with your computer. First step, and that is to organize. Trust me, this folder right here. Now, if this is the first example right here, I'm talking also has my audio. Well, I could convey your message more clearly. So we want to kind of divide these two. So I'm going to go ahead and click a new folder, and let's click A-roll. And this shot right here, we can see that once I open it up, this is my main talking head video. So this is our A-roll. So I'm going to click that one, drag it into A-roll, make another folder called B-roll, and all this other stuff is my B-roll. So I'm just going to go ahead and put that into there. Congratulations, you've now organized your footage. Now we can move on to step 2, which is importing into DaVinci Resolve. Click on this icon to open up Resolve. It should bring you to this page where all your different projects live. Now, of course, we don't have any projects yet, so we're gonna click on New Project and give it a name. So I'm just gonna put, again, PB&J tutorial. We're gonna then click on Create, and it should bring us to this rather terrifying looking screen. Now, if yours doesn't look exactly like mine, just go ahead to the bottom and make sure you select the Media tab. Now, just a side note, these different pages allow you to organize your project depending on your needs. For this tutorial, we're primarily going to stick around in the edit page, but first, make sure you're on the media page, and this is where we're going to import our footage. The first thing we want to do is drag this folder into our media pool. This is where we can access all of our clips as we edit. And once we do that, as you can see, it imports our clips. However, it's all disorganized. There's actually a quick fix for this. So what I'm going to do is click Command-Z just to undo my last move. And instead of dragging it here, I'm going to bring it right underneath where it says Master. And if I do that, as you can see, it keeps all of our folder structure the same. Just a little pro tip for you. So now we've imported our footage, we want to go down to the Edit tab. This is basically where we're going to live for most of our video editing purposes. Up on the top left, you can see all of our footage, and it's nicely organized. We have our main folder, our A-roll, and our B-roll. In order to view and play back our clip, let's go ahead and double click on our A-roll. As you can see, it brings it up into this Viewer tab, and we can play this back by pressing this play button here or pressing the space bar. Now, as you can see, I'm still setting up. So what we can actually do is scrub through this footage if we don't want to watch the whole thing in real time, just by clicking on this little handle here, and we can just kind of move it and see where we get to the actual action of our clip. In order to edit this clip, we need to drag it into our timeline. And to do that, you can basically click anywhere here on this viewer, drag it down right here, and boom, we have our A-roll in our timeline. I'm going to mess with the zooming of the timeline just so I can see the entire clip on our screen. Now, that is one way we can import our A-roll into a timeline. Another way, and it might be a little bit more effective, is if you use the player. Basically, if I only want a certain section of my video, I can scrub through right here and click I on my keyboard to set an in point, go through towards the end, basically to the end of my video, click O as an out point. And if I drag and drop this, basically it is already kind of trimming the beginning and the end as I bring it into the timeline. This is super handy if you have lots of B-roll and you only want a certain section. You don't have to drag the entire thing into your timeline. Now, similarly, we can actually scrub through our timeline by clicking on this little orange tab, and we can play it back, scrub through, find the points we want to work with. And that brings us to step 2, which is to cut down our A-roll footage. So playing back this footage, as we can see, I make a mistake at the beginning, but then I get into the main video right here and perform a good take. So what we want to do is we truly want the video to begin right here. And to do that, we can go over to the left side of this clip, click on it, and drag it all the way towards that beginning. That will basically remove all the other footage just to this point. But as you see, if we were to play this video back, we have a bunch of blank space. So if you click on that empty space, click delete, this brings it to the very beginning, and now our video begins right here. Continue to play the video. I have this empty gap that I want to remove the middle out of. So how do you do that? The first thing we want to click on is our blade tool. So move your attention right up here, click on this little razor, and then we can click and make a cut right here. As you see, there's a little perforated edge. So I want to cut it right here where I take too long with the bread tie, and I want it to end right there. So now I selected this little clip right in the middle that I want to remove. Just go ahead and click delete, and again, click on the middle, delete. And now we've removed that inner bit and made it a lot more snappy. And the handy tip is to look at our waveform when we're editing our talking head video. So as you can see, this little audio here, it gets a little quiet, it gets very low when I'm not talking, and it gets much louder when I do talk. So I can kind of use that as a guide of when I'm talking and what parts I want to remove. And if you want to get more precise on where you're cutting, just go up here to this zoom in tool and you can get really fine tuned and start making your tweaks right here. And you can also zoom out to see your entire video across your timeline. So now I'm just going to go through this entire video, cutting the things that I don't want in the video, and that way we'll have a nice snappy edit. You'll notice as I'm editing this A-roll, I'm not actually using that blade tool. Instead, I'm using a keyboard shortcut such as Command B to make those cuts as I go along the video. These little tricks help you speed up your workflow, and it's definitely looking into if you plan to get into video editing.
A few moments later.
So now the video is much shorter and snappier. However, we have these harsh jump cuts in the middle of our footage, and it looks rather unpolished. So to bring this video to life, we want to add some B-roll to give more perspective to our video. So in order to start placing our B-roll, I'm going to find a section where I think we could use some visuals. And right here, I listed that we'll need bread, peanut butter, and jelly. So I've actually shot all of that in our B-roll folder. So go up to the top left and click on B-roll, and we have a variety of different shots we can choose from. I'm going to click on this first clip here, and if I scroll to the very end, I have this nice panning shot that shows all the ingredients laid out. So what I'm going to do is find a good endpoint when I start on the camera movement, right about here. Click I on the keyboard and wait for it to end. Right here, I'll click O, and now I can basically do the same thing, import this into our timeline. Now, as you see, when I brought in the video like I did before, it also brings in audio track, and we don't necessarily want to have audio with our B-roll. So instead, what I'm going to do is click on this video only icon. I'm going to click hold and drag this right above where we want our cut to be. And if you bring it to a track above your A-roll timeline, you can move this around without affecting your A-roll clip. And now, once I play it back, you'll need for this dish. Well, you're gonna need some bread, some peanut butter, and your favorite jelly. So already just a much more engaging video right off the gate. So continue to play the video. We're going to run across our jump cut. Basically, this is where I've cut out all the fluff of me trying to fiddle around with the bread tie. So we actually want to cut away and show a new perspective and not have that obvious cut there. If you download this footage and follow along, you actually will see that I have a different camera angle. So if I go to ZVE10, A-roll, we'll see we have a top-down perspective of this entire video. So I'm gonna go through and find the exact moment when I basically have untied the bread, and we're gonna place that over our jump cut. Again, I'm gonna click I and O and drag just the video right above this cut. Now, when I play it back, so let's first untie our bread bag. Make sure you leave the end piece in there. No one wants that. Now it's just a lot smoother, even though I've actually completely omitted me messing around with the bread tie. When you look through this footage, you may notice that some footage is 60 frames per second. This is shot at a higher frame rate so I could later slow it down in editing. So let me show you how to do that. So I'm gonna grab this clip right here, and let's say I want this jelly spread to be slow motion. So I'm going to select my in and out points. I'm going to drag this onto the timeline as B-roll. I'm then going to right click and select change clip speed. And then I can go over to the speed tab and slow it down all the way down to 40%. And once I click that, you'll see that the clip is now very slow motion, very cinematic looking. I can then change how long I want the clip to last for. But that will basically take your 60 frames per second and make it 24, which plays back as slow motion. So as I place B-roll on this video, I'm just gonna listen through this entire video, and when I have a good visual in mind or something that I shot, I'm gonna place it where it seems to fit. So as an example, when I first play this clip, in this video, we're going to show you how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. I think it would be good to show a visual of the final product. So I'm going to reach up to this top clip, and I have this nice panning shot. So I'm going to click I right about here, and that should be enough. I'm going to click O, again, drag the video clip only, and then I'm just going to time it when it seems right when I say the word peanut butter and jelly sandwich. In this video, we're going to show you how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. So let's start. I'm going to cut right there, just kind of trim the ends. And now with that in place, let's take a look at our edit. In this video, we're going to show you how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. So let's start off with the ingredients. Already just much more engaging to watch. I'm going to do this exact same process throughout the entire video, choosing angles that is best going to show the action. So I've just gone through and placed B-roll throughout the entire video. So let's go ahead and let's watch it back. In this video, we're going to show you how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. So let's start off with the ingredients you'll need for this dish. Well, you're going to need some bread, some peanut butter, and your favorite jelly. Okay, so the added B-roll definitely does elevate the overall product, and I think it does two things for us. Number one, it just shows the overall clarity of the process of making the sandwich. And two, I was able to actually trim more fluff from this. By adding the B-roll, I could get away with cutting some things that I wouldn't have if I were just using A-roll. So overall, I think we're in a much better place, but we can go further with today's sponsor.
If you're a content creator or a YouTuber and you're looking for music for your video projects, then you definitely need to check out Epidemic Sound. When you
drag this into our timeline by just clicking, and we're going to drag it underneath our audio section. So it adds a new audio track. And if I were to play this back, in this video, we're going to show you how to make a peanut butter. You can see we got our music in there, but it's also way too loud. So we want to lower down this audio. So to change the volume of any audio, you can actually reach up towards this little bar and you can lower this down. I like to set my music somewhere around -30 for tutorial-based content. You want the music to be present, but you don't want it to be overpowering what you're saying. If you want a little bit more control, just select on this audio track and go up here to the inspector, make sure this is selected, click on audio, and here we can adjust the volume. So we have a little bit more control. We can also just double click on this and type in exactly if we want -30. So I like the current level of music as it's playing throughout the tutorial, but I actually want a little bit louder towards the beginning so we can hear the music. So to do this, we're going to just zoom in to this audio. And if you ever want to change the size of the different tracks you're working with, you can go over to these adjustments right here. I'm just going to click and lower here so I can really see that audio file. And what we're going to do is we're going to add some keyframes. I know, scary word, but trust me, it's actually very easy. I'm just going to click on option. Let's say I want to have the music pretty loud here, but I want it to fade out right after we introduce our ingredients. So I'm going to put my first keyframe here, and let's say I want the second one here. And basically I can then lift this section of the music, let's say -24. And from this first keyframe we put to the second keyframe is going to gradually go quieter to the volume we set at. So now let's take a listen. In this video, we're going to show you how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. So let's start off with the ingredients you'll need for this dish. Well, you're going to need some bread, some peanut butter, and your favorite jelly. So let's first untie our... So that sounds pretty good. If I want to make further adjustments, you can click on this keyframe and move it over. Just make sure that it is set to that volume you want. So -30 will be good. Boom. Again, if you want to adjust the audio track, you can just kind of move that back down. And now we have a nice music that sets the tone for this tutorial. But let's say you want the music to slowly fade into your video. Well, we can actually do this fairly simply by clicking on this little white tab on the left corner of this track, and we can fade it in. So let's say we have it at a 2-second duration. So once I play this, in this video, we're going to show you how to make a peanut butter and jelly. It gradually rises to the appropriate volume. And you can do the exact same thing for the ending as well. Now, just a quick note on music. I feel like for educational based videos, you do really want to have something very simplistic in the background. If you have music that starts competing with your vocals, it can be very distracting, and I think it removes away from the educational quality of the video. So having the music very subtle, but also simplistic, kind of airy, and slightly positive for a fun video like this, I think this track works well. Now that we got our A-roll cut, we added some B-roll, and now we put some music, I think this video is already a much better place. It is totally watchable at this point. However, I think you do want to spice it up a little bit more, so let's talk about adding in some text. I think it'll be nice to show some text for what the ingredients are. So I'm going to go over and make sure my effects tab is open, go down to titles, and let's just choose basic text. I'm going to drag and drop that above my B-roll clip. And as you can see, we have some basic titles. Go ahead and click on that. And in this box, we can change it to anything we like. So let's just type in bread, right? From here, we have a myriad of different controls. We can change the position at which this is at, the different scales. You can even change the rotation if you want to. And quick note, if you ever do want to undo something, you can either click Command Z, or you can click on this little undo for this particular function. So let's say I wanted to go back in the center, I just click that, boom. Very useful tool. So I want to change the position of this text. So what I'm gonna do is go down to the X and Y coordinates, and I'm just going to click and drag this down right here towards the bottom. I think this would be a good place to put our text. Now let's think about changing our font. So I'm gonna go through and pick a good font. And here we go, I'm just gonna go with the classic Think Media font. And let's just go ahead and bring up that scale just a bit. We can also choose to apply a drop shadow, which is enabled right here, and just go ahead and choose the offset, and that will kind of darken what's behind that text, which I think is really nice. So now if I play this video clip back, you're gonna need some bread. Our text now appears. However, it was quite abrupt, so you may want to add some transitions. So let's go over here to our toolbox, and right under video transitions, we have a bunch, but my favorite is to find the push one. So I'm just click that magnifying glass, find the push one. We're gonna drag it right over to the left side here. And as you can see, there is a little handle now, and I can change the duration of this. So for now, let's just set it around there. 14 frames should be good. If I were to play it back on its default settings, as you can see, it just kind of slides in, which is definitely nice. However, we can tweak the settings we want. So I want this text to rise from the bottom up. So let's click on it, go over to push, click push up, and we can change the few parameters such as the ease. I like to put ease in and out. What this does is instead of it being very linear, robotic, it kind of does a more natural flowing motion. So let's go ahead and watch that. You're gonna need some bread. Very nice. I think it definitely adds a little bit more pizzazz to this text. I'm going to trim this right over here, and then I'm going to copy this animation by holding down the Option key, click and drag that over. And now we also have this transition, but when we play this back, you'll see a problem. Some bread. It just kind of goes way off screen. So instead, I want to change the preset to push down. And now here is our effect. You're gonna need some bread, some peanut. It was a little bit too quick, so let's actually change this push animation and let's make that shorter so it has more time to be on screen. You're gonna need some bread. Now it's a little bit jittery, so what you can do is just add some motion blur, and that will help smooth things out a bit. You're gonna need some bread. I think this works pretty nicely. Now I want this to apply to my other ingredients as well, and we've done quite a bit of work just to reach this point. So a good way just to copy our work is to hold down Option, click on this and just drag it over, let go, and then let go of option. And now we have another text frame to work with. All I have to do at this point is just type in my other ingredient. I'm gonna make sure this fits over that clip, and I'm going to do the same thing for the jelly. And with that, we made a very basic text and animations to go with it. A cool thing about these transitions is it also works for video clips. So I'm just going to copy the animation we made already, hold down option, and I'm going to click and release it right here. And boom, now we have a smooth animation from our A-roll to our B-roll.
Oh my God! Wow!
You'll notice that this footage is all shot on a tripod, so there is no camera movement. And now if you want to add a little bit more spice into your videos, you can actually add some of this camera movement in post. Let me show you how to do that. So in my main angle, it is shot on a tripod, no camera movement whatsoever. If I decide I want to add some digital camera movement, what I'm first going to do is I'm just going to make a cut right here where I'm on screen. This will come in handy a little bit later. I'm then going to click on this clip, make sure you're under inspector, and click on dynamic zoom. Make sure it's turned on and just click on it to see this drop down menu. We're going to keep it on linear. And what we need to do now is we need to go down to this little icon right here and click on dynamic zoom. We'll have two frames, a green and a red frame. Our green frame is our starting movement. So let's say I want this to kind of start closer and then digitally scale out. So I'm going to set that frame right around here. And let's watch this back now. In this video, we're going to show you how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. So now with a few quick steps, we just have this nice subtle camera movement pulling out that adds just a little bit more interest to a static shot. We can actually further control what this dynamic zoom is doing. So we can choose to go from linear or an ease in. And ease basically is going to help create more natural movement. So it's going to start off slower, then ramp up. For this, I like to keep it linear. And now with that animation combined with our B-roll, this is our result. In this video, we're going to show you how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. So let's start off with the ingredients you'll need for this dish. Alrighty, this is taking nice shape and it's much more entertaining to watch. Now I want to take you to my favorite part of editing, and I think it is often overlooked by YouTubers, but it is something you should pay attention to and I think can really improve the overall look of your video, and that is color correction. To do this, I'm just going to click on my A-roll clip and head over to the color tab. And yes, this kind of looks scary at first, but we're only going to do a few basic adjustments and it's going to take us really far. The first step of the color correction process that I like to do is get a proper white balance. So sometimes your footage can look a little bit too warm or a little bit too cool. Well, we can actually fix that in one simple step. We're going to reach down for this eyedropper tool and we're going to select on something that is white and bright. So I'm just going to select on this plate because it happens to be there. Now, you may not have noticed a difference, but if we look down here on the temperature and the tint settings, we can see that it decided to make it a little bit cooler and add a little bit more green. So it was a little bit too warm and a little bit too magenta, but it fixed for that. The second thing I like to do is make sure my exposure is right. So if I go down here, we have these different color wheels. One is called lift, gamma, gain, and offset. That is really confusing, but what I like to think of this is shadows, midtones, highlights, and just general exposure. So if I mess with the offset, it kind of increases everything. Can also darken it. Let's say you make a mistake, you can just, again, click this tool right here, get back to default. The third thing I like to do is add in a little bit of contrast. So let's go ahead and just move this to the right. Not too much because we're pretty close already. The fourth step is to add some saturation. So if I go down here to the saturation slider, as I increase this, it's going to make it more colorful. If you start going too far, it starts looking really bad. So just keep it very subtle, maybe 55. Now it may look like we haven't done much of a difference, but if I toggle this on and off, you can see it is quite substantial. And I do think the higher contrast, more saturated look is definitely more appealing to look at. Now, so far, we've only color graded this one clip. If I go further in the video, you can see that it's not the color graded version. So if I want to apply this color grade to all the clips in my video, what I can do is click Command C on the clip we color graded, click Command A to select all of it, and then click Command V. And that will apply the color grade to all the clips in our video. Now, quick pro tip here is if you plan on doing your color correction, I recommend doing it as the first step of your video, because then later when you make your cuts, you don't have to go in and apply it to every single clip. Just makes it a little bit faster. All right, so with the color grade done, it's already looking so much better, but now it's time to improve the sound of our video. Now, I think a lot of people overlook the audio part of a YouTube video, but I think it is the most important. It's really important that you hear what's being said as clearly as possible. Now for here, it helps that I have a nice microphone attached to me, so that way we have decent audio, and I always recommend having good audio when you're shooting the video. But there are a few things we can do to improve the audio in post-production. And for that, we need to head over to the Fairlight tab. Yeah, another scary screen, but don't worry, we'll guide through you step by step. We won't do too much in this. The first thing we want to look at is this little audio thing right here. This basically will change the audio track layer. So it doesn't matter how many clips you have on track audio 1, this will raise all of them. So when I play back this clip, as you can see, it gets pretty louder here, but I can just lower this to have something that's a little bit more manageable. And you want your audio to be hitting around -3, -6 dB around here. For this, I think this is probably pretty good. And as you can see on audio track 2 is my music, and it's way down here where we want it. All right, so now we set our audio levels, which is definitely really good, but I actually want to improve the audio quality of my lapel microphone. The first thing I want to do is disable my music so I don't hear that as I'm working on this audio. So you can either click on this music track and select mute, or you can select on just your audio and select solo. Sometimes that's a little bit easier to do. So if now I soloed this audio clip, I just hear me. So now I'm going to click on this EQ tab. I'm just gonna give it a double click. And this brings up a little graph like this. This is a little bit complicated, but if you roughly follow this shape, you will get a little bit better audio. So let's go ahead and click on band 1 and band 6. Going to move the 6. So think of this as your low end and your high ends. What we want to do is kind of cut out some of the lower frequencies that are main audio my voice is not picking up. This kind of cuts down on the room tone in our audio. I'm also going to this band 5 little one, and I'm just going to raise it up. Put all the peanut butter on there. And this is going to improve my high end, which is going to give it a little bit more clarity. Now you don't want to go too high with this because it'll start kind of bleeding your ears, but just enough to kind of give it more clarity. Now with lav mics in particular, sometimes it can sound a little bit muffled, and if we want to kind of improve that, we can go down here to this 3 and we're going to find the frequencies we want to remove. So I'm just going to raise this up, increase the factor so we get a very narrow angle. You can easily spread across. And now I like to kind of wipe the excess off there. I'm going to grab, so you can hear this really booming sound. Our jelly. It doesn't sound good, but we found a good frequency we can eliminate. So if I just lower this down to around -6 and make it a little bit wider, we've kind of cut down that frequency. And now I like to kind of wipe the excess off there. Sounds a little better. I'm going to do the same thing for audio 4. I'm going to grab our jelly. So we got some. So it's a really echoey, tinny sound. I found that point. I'm just going to lower it on toward grape jelly, and we're just going to something like here. Put amount that we desire. So now let's take a listen to what it sounded like before. In this video, we're going to show you how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And now I'll turn it back on. In this video, we're going to show you how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. I think that sounds much better. It definitely makes the voice sound more full and it removes some of that muffly tones. Once you're happy with your EQ, we can now exit out of that and make sure to unsolo your audio so that way it brings your music back. All right, we've already gotten so far. We edited our A-roll, we added some B-roll, we added some text, music, some animations, and even improved the color grading and the audio quality. This is the part where I like to take a breather. We've already got a lot of work into it. Sometimes you can be blind to some of your editing mistakes. So take a few minutes, just relax, zone out, go for a walk, grab a cup of coffee, and then sit back and watch your video again with fresh eyes. One thing I like to do is get my friend's perspective on it. Now that I've basically worked on the video, I feel comfortable enough to show it to someone who can watch it and they can give me their genuine feedback. Now, oddly enough, sometimes just by having your friend watch the video, they may not say anything to you, but you'll start to see all the flaws and you know, oh, I actually want to fix this. So it's a great way to apply those changes and improve your overall video. All right, so now you edited your video, it's time to export it. The first thing we want to do in the edit page is select our in and out points on our timeline. This tells Resolve where we want the video to begin and where we want it to end. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to the very end of our project, zoom way in, and I'm going to click O. And as you can see, there's a little handle right above here, a little gray bar. Make sure this is set to the end and not out here, because then you'll have a black screen. So again, make sure that is nicely aligned with our last frame, and that should include the first frame as well, but you can always just make sure and click I just to double check. With our in and out points selected, we want to go over to the deliver page. So up here in the top left, we can give our video a file name. So I'm just going to say, again, PB&J tutorial. Then we want to choose a location. Go ahead and click browse and click a folder where you want this video to be exported. I recommend going to that same root folder we made called PB&J. And then I like to make a new folder called exports. Go ahead and create, and let's hit save. Now we want to make sure we have some settings checked. Everything should be kind of like mine, but just double check, make sure it's single clip, export video. I like to use QuickTime H.264, and I'm actually going to change the resolution to 3840 by 2160. This is a 4K export, so make sure it's nice and high quality. And just double check your settings match mine. I'm going to go down to add to render queue. Go ahead and click add higher resolution renders. And now we just hit render and wait for the video to export. So now that it's completed, I'm going to exit out of Resolve, and now I'm going to open up our final export video. Go ahead and watch it and review it just to make sure there's no export errors or glitches. All right, so let's go ahead and watch our final video. In this video, we're going to show you how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. So let's start off with the ingredients you'll need for this dish. Well, you're going to need some bread, some peanut butter, and your favorite jelly. So let's first untie our bread bag. Make sure you leave the end piece in there. No one wants that. Then we're going to grab a clean knife and grab some peanut butter. We're going to go with the creamy version this time around. And we're just going to grab a healthy dose of it like that. And we're just going to spread it evenly across all over the sides. We're going to need a little bit more than that. Just put all the peanut butter on there. It's helpful if you have video editing can feel